The year was 1742, and a heavy, suffocating frost had settled over the fenlands of rural Lincolnshire. In a timber-framed cottage at the edge of the mire, Master Gideon sat by a dying peat fire, scraping dark, pitch-colored mud from his apothecary's scales. For weeks, an unnatural sickness had gripped the parish. The locals called it the black bile, a creeping rot that started as a bitter taste on the tongue and ended with the afflicted coughing up thick, ink-colored fluid until their breath failed them. Gideon, a man of cold science and desperate ambition, believed the affliction was tied to the stagnant marsh water bubbling just beyond his door. As midnight approached, a frantic knocking shook the heavy oak door. Gideon unlatched the timber, pulling it open to reveal Martha, the village baker's wife. Her face was deathly pale, stained with dark streaks running from the corners of her mouth. She clutched a pewter bowl filled with the dreaded discharge, her hands trembling violently in the biting frost. "Please, Master Gideon," she rasped, her voice cracking like dry wood. "My husband, he has stopped breathing, and the mud, it is pooling beneath his bed." Gideon grabbed his leather medical bag, his boots crunching against the frozen turf as they hurried through the fog. The village was entirely still, shrouded in a deep, heavy quiet that felt almost predatory. Not a dog barked, not a window flickered with light. Arriving at the cottage, a strange, coppery tang hung heavy in the air, a sharp, pungent scent akin to unwashed coins or fresh blood. Gideon stepped inside, holding a tallow candle aloft. In the center of the low-ceilinged room lay the baker, his limbs twisted in unnatural angles. His mouth was stretched wide in a silent scream, choked off forever. But it was not the body that drew Gideon's gaze. A thick, viscous fluid, black as midnight and bubbling with tiny, foul-smelling gas pockets, was seeping upward between the pine planks. It writhed like a living thing, spreading outward in fractal patterns toward the hearth. Martha fell to her knees, sobbing, but no sound escaped her throat. Her eyes widened in sheer terror as the pool of black bile surged forward, climbing with unnatural speed up the legs of the wooden cot. Before Gideon could grab her arm, the dark liquid leaped from the floorboards, wrapping around Martha's ankles like thick, tarry cords. She opened her mouth to cry out, but only a thick, dark froth bubbled over her lips. Gideon stumbled backward, his heel catching on the threshold. In the flickering candlelight, the shadows along the walls detached themselves, stretching and pooling, into the same oily substance, consuming the room. The air grew freezing cold, pressing down on his chest with immense, suffocating weight. He turned and bolted into the dark, desolate night, leaving the cottage behind. But as he ran through the fog, the squelch of heavy mud followed close behind his boots, a relentless liquid rhythm that promised the rot would soon claim the entire valley. Gideon's boots break through the crust of frozen mud with each frantic stride. His lungs burn, drawing in the raw, biting air as he cuts across the open fen. Behind him, the squelch grows louder, a wet, churning suction tearing through the frost. He glances back over his shoulder. A wave of black, boiling fluid surges across the grass, faster than a running man, churning up clumps of frozen turf. The dark liquid smells of old iron and rot, rising in a thick, choking mist that burns his nostrils. He tries to veer left toward the old stone bridge, but his foot catches on a concealed root. He pitches forward, slamming hard into the frozen earth. The impact knocks the wind from his chest, and before he can push himself up, the cold, heavy tide washes over his ankles. It feels like molten lead, searing, yet freezing cold, pinning his legs to the ground. Gideon claws at the dirt, his fingernails tearing against the unyielding frost. He screams, but his voice is swallowed by the thick, choking fog rolling off the mire. The black bile climbs higher, wrapping around his waist, thick and viscous, pulling him downward. As the tide reaches his chin, the bubbling surface parts. Faces, distorted and dark, smeared with the same pitch-black fluid, peer up from within the liquid mass. Martha's wide, terror-stricken eyes stare back at him from the depths, her mouth moving in a wordless plea. Gideon's head dips beneath the surface. The blackness floods his mouth, thick and heavy, ending his struggle as the fens reclaim another soul into the dark earth. Beneath the surface, the liquid does not drown him with water. It fills him with a heavy, pulsing weight that beats in time with a hidden, subterranean heart. Gideon's lungs stop burning, replaced by a strange, numb fire spreading through his veins. His eyes remain wide open beneath the black tide. In the murky depths, the mud parts further, revealing an immense, cavernous hollow beneath the fens, a vast subterranean chamber lined with thousands of human skulls, all weeping the same dark fluid. The liquid inside Gideon shifts, forcing his jaw apart. He tries to gag, but the dark bile surges up his throat, spilling out into the surrounding pool to join the collective tide. His fingers twitch once against the mud, his final human reflex fading as his flesh softens, dissolving slowly into the expanding mire. Above on the surface, the tide slows to a crawl, smoothing out into a sheet of polished, lightless glass. The fenland falls completely still once more, waiting in the freezing dark for the next heavy footsteps to cross the frost. Upon the glass-smooth surface of the mire, a fresh pair of boots presses into the brittle, frozen crust. A traveler, carrying a heavy brass lantern, trudges out of the fog, his breath pluming white against the bitter air. He stops at the edge of the glassy pool, lowering his lamp to inspect the strange, unblemished expanse of dark water blocking the path. The flame within the glass lantern sputters, turning a sickly, jaundiced green. Beneath the traveler's boots, the smooth surface shivers. A single bubble rises from the depths, bursting with a soft pop, releasing a dense plume of vapor that smells of old iron and wet earth. The traveler blinks, lowering his lantern closer to the pitch-black water, unaware of the pale, dissolving fingers pressing upward against the underside of the frozen skin just inches below his soles. The glass-smooth ice beneath the traveler's boots cracks with the sound of snapping bone. Before he can pull his foot back, a pair of pale, elongated fingers bursts upward through the frozen crust, wrapping tight around his ankle with bone-crushing force. The grip is freezing, sending an instant chill shooting up his calf. The traveler gasps, dropping his heavy brass lantern. The glass globe shatters against the frozen turf, spilling burning oil that instantly ignites the frost, casting a frantic, flickering orange glare across the dark fen. In the sudden firelight, the surface of the pool shatters completely. A towering mass of black bile erupts from the depths, dragging the screaming traveler down into the boiling tar-like abyss. He thrashes wildly, his arms flailing as the thick fluid fills his open mouth, choking off his cries. The struggle lasts only a few frantic seconds. As the last of the traveler's coat disappears beneath the surface, the burning oil on the frost flickers and dies, plunging the mire back into absolute darkness. The water settles, smoothing out once more into a flat, mirror-like sheet, waiting in the freezing cold for the next set of footsteps to break the frost. Beneath the glass-smooth surface, the traveler sinks into the subterranean vault, joining Gideon in the endless dark current. Together their dissolving forms feed the sprawling roots of black bile that pulse beneath the Lincolnshire fens. As the fluid absorbs their final memories, a low tectonic rumble vibrates through the damp earth. The subterranean network of pitch and bone shifts, expanding its borders inch by inch, stretching outward past the marshes toward the nearest sleeping village. By dawn, the dark tide has breached the outer cellar walls of the parish church. A single drop of the heavy, ink-colored fluid forms on the edge of the pulpit, swelling slowly under the morning light before falling to stain the wooden floorboards, ready for the first Sunday congregant to open the heavy doors.